Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Kmetko, and I'm calling this week's podcast, Who Pulled the Plug on Gay TV News? Joining me by phone are Itay Hod, a veteran correspondent for the CBS News on LOGO, also known as 365 Gay News, which just went on permanent hiatus, sadly, and the news director of OUTQ on Sirius XM Radio's Tim Curran. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Happy to be with you.
Thanks for joining me here at mycommunity.com. First of all, I'd like to ask a question to both of you. Some of the issues facing gay people now are no different than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. For example, this is just off the top of my head, the right to marry, being able to serve openly in the military, the definition and prosecution of hate crimes against gays, discrimination in the workplace. Do you think it's more important now, more important than ever before, to have a specifically gay-themed newscast?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's always been important. I think probably more so than before, just because of the fact that, yes, all these things were still relevant 10 years ago, but right now there's actually talk about them becoming possible. So gay marriage we were talking about gay marriage maybe 10 years ago, but really we haven't seen it happen until the last few years, until recent years anyway. So, yeah, this is the time when everything's happening. This is exactly when we should have all these newscasts.
Tim, what's your opinion?
Well, the mainstream media has, taken up gay news more and more. We're seeing more stories on the Associated Press, newspapers that previously wouldn't cover gay issues now are doing so, but they're doing it for a mainstream audience and spend most of their broadcast time or most of their column inches in print talking to a mainstream audience and explaining the basics, and often never getting to things that a gay audience would specifically be interested in. The details, for example, are transgender people included in this new non-discrimination bill somewhere or other, and oftentimes mainstream reporters don't even know what gender identity means.
Itay, can you tell me what happened with CBS News and LOGO?
Oh, I guess what often happens with any kind of news organization these days, it was all about the bottom line. We from what I understand, LOGO was happy with the newscast. The show was going well. The problem with it was the money. They decided they didn't have the money to spend for news, and they decided to cancel it. It was a sad day, but we were aware of the fact that the economy, the way it was, there was a very strong chance they wouldn't renew the contract. That contract, basically the way it worked was when LOGO decided they wanted to have gay news, they had two options. One was either starting it from scratch and figuring out how to do it themselves, or the other option was to go to CBS, which was part of their same company at the time, and say, hey, could you do the news for us for a certain amount of money? That was a very smart decision, but what it meant was every year they had to come up with that money in order for the news to be done by CBS. CBS was basically providing that service for them. And so every year, come contract time, we were always wondering whether that was going to happen, or was this going to be the year when they were going to finally pull the plug. And we knew the last year when it was up for renewal, that there was going to be a strong chance that because of the way the economy is and, advertising is hitting everyone, and LOGO's no exception, we knew that there was that possibility, and in fact, that's what happened.
Tim, I'd like to ask you, what kind of feedback do you get from your audience, Sirius XM, about a place for gay-oriented news in the media?
Well, our audience pays careful attention to the news that we do. We joke around here that, the purpose of the 4-minute newscast that we do every hour, 24 hours a day, is so that the hosts of the talk shows can go to the bathroom. But the truth is that, on days when I'm out sick or on vacation, we get emails saying, hey, what happened to Tim? And we get a lot of feedback from the audience that shows that they're carefully paying attention. They pitch us stories or tip us to things in their local newspaper that we otherwise might not know about. So they're very interested in the news of their community, the same way that people who listen to, WHIO are interested in what's going on in their little corner of Ohio. That's their community. People treat OUTQ news as if it's their local news, except their locality, their community is the LGBT community.
Hey, in general, doesn't there exist a general apathy amongst LGBT people? Aren't we still perceived in many households as the guys who dress up in drag on Halloween, or the dykes on bikes who kick off the pride parades?
It's an interesting question. I think you find a little bit of both. I mean, I have found that it's hard to tell how much people care about the newscast. You do it every day, and you hope that people care, and you hope that people are watching. But I have to say, since we've gone off the air, I can't even tell you the dozens, if not hundreds, of emails and messages that I've gotten through either my email address or Facebook or MySpace, where people, say, "We're so sad. We just heard. We're so sad." It does feel like, wow, people definitely do care a little bit about this.
Okay. I want to say thanks again to Itay Hod and Tim Curran, and as Dan Rather used to close his newscast, to both of you I say courage, and to both of you I say keep up the good work, and I hope there's a place for you to do that work as the future unfolds.
Thank you
very much.
And we leave you this go-round with what I think is an inspiring quote from none other than Marlo Thomas. She said, "I don't think homosexuality is a choice. Society forces you to think it's a choice, but in fact, it's in one's nature. The choice is whether one expresses one's nature truthfully or spends the rest of one's life lying about it." Later, I'm Steve Kmetko.